Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
We're back with another episode of The Next Stop Is with me, Jane August. Have you seen that rehearsal video from the Ballroom Cats production happening in Lower Manhattan? The one of the Jellicle Cats, and they're strutting down a catwalk, and it slays, and suddenly everyone was talking about that show. That clip is from the final production of the debut season at the Perelman Performing Arts Center, also known as PACNYC. And today we're going to talk all about PACNYC, building a new cultural institution, and how you can market that with Miranda Palumbo, the director of digital content at PACNYC, and the producer behind that Cats video and all the other content they put out. She also has a history of working in nonprofit arts and entertainment, working at Signature Theater, Roundabout, the Public Theater, and a whole lot more. Welcome.
Hi.
Let's just get into it. What is PACNYC? I feel like a lot of people are still getting introduced to it.
Absolutely. PACNYC is a brand new performing arts center that just opened in September 2023. It is the final piece of the rebuilding of the World Trade Center campus post 9/11, and we present and produce all types of art: dance, theater, musical theater, opera, so many different things.
And then you're wrapping up your first season of programming.
Yes.
What has been going on this season?
We have produced the most diverse slate of programming that I personally have ever worked on. And when I say diverse programming, I mean in terms of forms of art. I come from a more traditional theater background, so I'm used to working on plays and musicals. But in our inaugural season, we presented music pieces, we presented dance pieces, we presented traditional theater pieces, musical theater pieces like Cats, the Jellicle Ball. It's just been a whirlwind of all different types of artists from literally all over the world coming into our doors and sharing their talent with New York City, and it has just been an incredible learning experience and also a lot of work and fun.
Did they know going into it that was going to be just a very wide array of performing arts?
Yes, I think there's a lot of history with the building itself. When Mayor Michael Bloomberg started spearheading the plan for the rebuilding of the World Trade Center campus, he knew that he wanted a performing arts center to be on the campus because he believes where culture is where commerce is, where people are, there is money. So he always wanted there to be a performing arts center of some kind, and it went back and forth of who was going to be in the space that was eventually built. And finally, it landed on a brand new arts institution would find itself there, and that is who we are. And it's always been our mission as the Perelman Performing Arts Center, PACNYC, to present a wide variety of programming.
Has there been a favorite thing that you've seen so far in this first season?
I mean, I want to say Cats, the Jellicle Ball, but on a more personal note, for me, getting to work with Sonia Taya and Jen Freeman on the dance piece Is It Thursday Yet was a true highlight for me. I am a longtime dancer. I grew up watching So You Think You Can Dance, and so getting to meet and to work with Sonia Taya was a dream I didn't know I had until it happened, and then getting to see an actual dance piece on stage and work on it myself was really wonderful.
How is doing that different than traditional theater pieces that you're used to?
You think a lot of the time that people who come to theater also go to dance and also go to the opera and also go to classical musical performances, but that's not necessarily true. In this first season, it really was, okay, how do you market a chamber music piece, or how do you market a dance piece? Because most of my colleagues are from the more theater world. And so a lot of it is figuring out how people who go to primarily dance performances receive the information about those shows. Is it through email newsletters? Is it through paid social media? Is it through influencers? So it was a lot of research of how people receive this information and what is it that gets them to come see that performance. Do they want to see it because of the choreographer or because of a certain performer, or is it because they want to come see a dance piece, period, and they just love dance, they love contemporary dance, or they love ballet, or they love jazz. So it was a lot of figuring that out. It's very similar in marketing a musical theater piece or a play, but the muscles that I had to use for a musical theater piece are already there, and I had to develop them for marketing a dance piece.
Oh, cool. And so I feel like you're probably having different audiences for each piece, right?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely have people who have already decided that PACNYC is the place they want to be no matter what we are presenting, but I was at all 3 nights of our Downtown Sessions concerts, which were live musical performances from 3 different Broadway artists. We had LaShawn's, Brian Stokes Mitchell, and Ben Platt. And even though that is the same genre of performance, all 3 of those audiences were wildly different from one another. So it was really wonderful to just see different groups of people coming into the space and experiencing it for what was likely the first time, and then hopefully we got them back again.
And let's talk about the space, because this theater is very unique with the lobby and the stage setup. And do you want to talk a bit about this building?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lawrence Fishburne called PACNYC the cube of culture when he was here for his show Like They Do in the Movies. And so PACNYC is literally a cube in shape, and we call it a box within a box because there's the outside perimeter, which are walkways for folks, and then inside the perimeter is where all the action happens. So on the lobby level, which is on our 2nd floor, we have a lobby stage, and that lobby stage is used for free programming that is done multiple times a week. So we have DJs, we have singer-songwriters, we've had classical music groups, things like that, and it's all free. We do family programming on Saturdays, so it's appropriate for all ages. We've done like interactive dance workshops, and we have toddlers running around the lobby and learning how to do dance steps, which as somebody who grew up dancing is just really, really, really fun. Also on the lobby level, we have Marcus Samuelson's Metropolis restaurant. And then when you go upstairs to the theater level, again, take that box mentality and split the box into 4 different quadrants. 3 of those quadrants hold theater volumes. All 3 of those theater volumes can be connected to one another. So there are sets of acoustic doors in between the theater volumes that go up and down that can combine the largest space with the second largest space, and then the second largest space with the smallest space, or they all can exist on their own. So we can have up to 3 different performances running at one time. Or we can combine, let's take, for example, the configuration that we're doing for Cats the Jellicle Ball right now. We have combined our largest space, the Zuccotti Theater, and our second largest space, the Nichols Theater, to make a runway configuration. So there are many moving pieces. It's not just the walls that move in the theater spaces. We have seating towers, which are on air casters. Essentially, we pump the seating towers full of pressurized air, and they float a couple inches off the ground. And then our crew moves them from one side to the other.
That's crazy.
It's really cool to watch. And that allows us to move the seats and make them into different shapes. So we have over 60 different ways that we can arrange the theater spaces. With things like those seating towers, that helps us make theater in the round or a thrust configuration, things like that. And so it's really cool because in most traditional theater spaces, you walk in and the seating is on one side and everybody's facing the same direction to the stage. That's called a traditional proscenium or end stage. And if somebody wanted to do a theater piece that was not configured like that, they would either have to find a space that is in that configuration or pay a certain amount of money to completely transform that space. Most theater spaces are not malleable, but something that is really unique about our space is the many different ways that it can be configured and the many different technologies we use to reconfigure it.
How many configurations have you done so far? Do you know?
I don't know.
Of the 60, is there a checklist of have we done it all?
Our production team would know for sure. I would guess that it's at least 10, and we've done a lot of shows, so I would say at least 10.
How many shows were in the first season?
So many. So many. We did a lot of one-night only programming or short runs like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where I am very used to things that run for like 6 weeks or more. So that was also something that was new to me when I came into the position, is marketing a one-night only event or a 3 performances only. And how do you approach that differently than something that's going to run for 6 weeks?
What does the director of digital content do exactly? What does your job encompass?
My job sort of encompasses graphic designers, and we have a brand that's really spearheaded by our creative director. But I lead on all things photo and video. So whether that is a photo shoot for key art for a production, which is like the poster that you see around town that's advertising the show, or a production photo shoot where we have a photographer come and photograph like the actual production. So you see the costumes and the lights and everything like that, to promotional footage like the Cats the Jellicle Ball trailer that you mentioned. That was something that I spearheaded and I'm responsible for. I don't necessarily film all of it myself. Something like that trailer I did not film, but I have a team member who's our social media manager, and she does a lot of filming of the content on an iPhone, things like backstage, behind the scenes that we set strategy for together.
And you had the really unique opportunity of creating like the content blueprint for this new organization. How did you go about that and take that on?
Yeah, it was an interesting process because I spent about 4.5 years at the Public Theater, which is this giant, beloved institution. It's been around for a really long time, and I inherited a way of doing things. I inherited the way that you produce a promo video. I inherited a way that we ask artists to participate in any sort of content. And so I sort of said to myself, okay, if I could just throw all of that out the window, but take what I have learned works best for an institution and might need to be adjusted to help it really succeed in the digital space, what would I do? And if you take a look at my very first draft of our long-term strategy document, you'll see a lot of asterisks and qualifiers and things like that. That is very based on what I've learned throughout my career of, oh, hey, you may have an emergency 24 hours prior to, here's how you should handle it type thing. So it's a lot of using my prior knowledge to really map out the best way forward. And I know that it is very much a reach because producing content for an organization does not just happen in a box. It's not just me saying, okay, we're going to go in a rehearsal room and we're going to do this thing. It literally takes an entire organization to produce pretty much every piece of content, because you have to involve the company manager who oversees the artists, and you have to involve stage management and the directing team because they're like, oh, I don't want this piece of the show revealed in photos just yet. Can we make sure we don't photograph that? Things like that. So it's putting out the ideal of what I wanted and what this organization said it wanted to be based on everything I've done in the past, 6-7 years of my career.
Was there anything that you didn't expect with this role or things that really surprised you?
The terrible answer to that question is everything. I think what surprised me was how hard it was to both build a brand and sell programming at the same time. So obviously, when you start social media channels, you start with 0 following. Nobody's there. And so how did I build that following and get people to know about our brand and also get them to buy tickets to our shows? Because we got to make money and we want people to come and see all of the fabulous art that we're doing. We use the metaphor of like building the plane while flying it at the same time, and that is exactly what it is. And you would think, oh, you're just putting out like institutional content and show content at the same time. That's easy. It is, and it isn't, because there are so many things that an established organization already knows about its space and how it functions. So all of us, or I would say most of us, come from a variety of different arts organizations, whether they're the Public or Roundabout or ART in Cambridge. And they're like, well, at such and such organization, the building was already ready for us to do XYZ. But here we don't have that built out yet. So this idea that you have, we can't do as easily. So that's been a fun adventure.
Cool. And so right now, the big production that everyone is talking about is Cats the Jellicle Ball. Do you want to tell us a bit about the concept and why everyone loves it?
Yes, absolutely. So Cats the Jellicle Ball is a radical reimagining of Andrew Lloyd Webber and T.S. Eliot's classic musical. It ran for a very long time on Broadway in the 80s and was such a wild success. And in the original production, it's called Cats because the actors are cats. And in this production, all of the actors are human. It takes place in a nightclub and is inspired by the ballroom culture scene that was founded by the queer, Black, and Latinx communities up in Harlem over 50 years ago. And so if you've seen Paris is Burning or you've seen the show Legendary, that is the world that this show exists in. We have not changed the music. We haven't changed a word of the score. They're not in cat costumes. They're in fabulous outfits by Queen Jean, and they're strutting down the runway. And the basis of the show is still the same. All of these characters are competing to go to the Heaviside layer, whatever that means to you. In each production, the Heaviside layer is represented differently. And all these characters are competing to be called the Jellicle Choice by Old Deuteronomy, who is the Jellicle leader. And so in this production, it is essentially a ballroom competition where there are different categories of ballroom, such as body and runway and new way versus old way, that each sort of character song takes on that sort of moves the competition forward.
I loved it. I saw it on Tuesday, and it was fabulous. I was like a Cats hater. And I was like, wait, I think I get it now.
We all say that if we had a penny for everyone who said, I am a Cats hater, or I was a Cats hater and I now get it, we would be rich.
Did it come out in the 80s, 70s? When did Cats?
I believe it was the 80s.
Yeah, it took 50 years, 40 years for us all to finally get Cats. Because it's like the first major reimagining of Cats.
Yes,
right?
There was a Broadway revival in, I believe, 2016, something like that. Yeah. But this is the first time that this show has been reimagined and like set in a new location, and this is the first time they're not cats. So it's very different.
And so you made this rehearsal video that went viral and was mentioned in the New York Times that really got people being like, oh, this like cat seems like it's doing something. And you made, on your personal Instagram, you made an Instagram post where you talked about the marketing of the show. And there's one thing I really loved. You said your marketing team is a part of your core show team, yes. Which I think so true and so smart. How is like PACNYC embracing that idea?
Absolutely. I think a lot of it is that we are a smaller, newer organization. And while we all, for the most part, have produced art, whether that's opera or theater or dance, in some way, shape, or form at previous companies, this is the first time that we are all producing something together. So we are sort of figuring out what that means for us and like pulling on all of our past experiences to do this the PACNYC way, which we haven't 100% figured out yet, but we're learning with each show. And I was one of the first marketing people hired for this organization. I was hired before we had like a theatrical PR team on board. I was hired before we had a marketing director. It was me. And so I think I did not have to fight really in any way for my voice to be heard or to get into rooms where conversations around shows were happening. And I realized what a privilege that is because we didn't have any way it's been done before that we could rely on. When we were putting together the blueprints for shows, I was the only one who could give an answer when it came to marketing. Like, how much money do we need for production photos? Or how much money do we need for XYZ when they're building show budgets? Our general manager would just look at me and be like, Miranda? And I would be like, I don't know. So I think a lot of that collaborative relationship and really having marketing in the room came from necessity and the small small nature of our team, and we haven't transitioned out of that yet. But I think the second piece of that is not just institutional buy-in with like the people that I work with on a daily basis. It is creative team buy-in. So yes, Cats the Jellicle Ball is co-directed by our artistic director, Bill Rausch, and co-directed by Jalen Livingston. And so obviously there was that established relationship that Bill and I had just being colleagues. But on one of our very first video shoots, I looked at Omari Wiles, who's one of the choreographers, and we were having a conversation just about execution of this show and how big it was and what it was going to take. And he said to me, he was like, no, you all are on this team. We're all here together to do this show together. And, marketing has a voice in what we do and is very important. And I said to him that was like one of the nicest things anybody has ever said to me.
I love that. Because I feel like, especially in New York City theater, marketing-wise, it's like you get the poster, they're like, buy tickets, there's stars in it. You get a few production shots, and that's really all. And then people are wondering, why are shows closing so quickly? Why aren't people coming to the theater?
It's very hard.
Yeah.
Marketing a show is very hard. And yes, you have those tentpole items that, like I say, will happen no matter what. But the real work is, what content are you going to create outside of those moments that sell your show, and when are you going to do them? It's challenging because typically the answer to that question is, you'll film promos during the rehearsal period, which is when most of them happen. But something to keep in mind is that these artists are working 8-hour days, 6 days a week. We're starting to transition to 5-day rehearsal weeks, but still a work in progress. And these artists are working really, really hard and doing a lot of vulnerable work in the span of their 8-hour days. And they're tired. They're really working hard. And so it's a lot to ask them to do a 2-hour shoot after rehearsal or come in 2 hours early for a photo shoot before rehearsal begins. So you're working within the confines of that 4 to 6 week rehearsal period, and you have to make sure that you are covering all your bases with your unions. So Actors Equity, which governs the actors, 802, which governs the musicians, and depending on where you are, there are other unions that may be involved. So they have a lot of rules and regulations that say, okay, if you want to keep actors after rehearsal, or if you want to do something during rehearsal, this is what you have to do. So there's union regulations, there's actors' time and energy, and obviously the most important thing is to get the show up and have the maximized rehearsal time. So it's that perfect storm of how are you going to maximize the 30 minutes a week you may have with an artistic group of people to best sell your show. And sometimes you have to make the big asks, which is what I did for Cats the Jellicle Ball. I knew that we were in the situation where I could, and I did, and we said yes. So to film that trailer, we took time during rehearsal, which is normally something that's very, very hard to do. We had essentially 90 minutes to film 3 different snippets of the show. My film team came in the day before, and at the end of rehearsal that day, they ran the 3 numbers that they wanted us to capture. And so we sort of filmed it on an iPhone so that overnight the film team could make a sort of plan. And then we came in the next day, built equipment in the hallway. And then when the cast went on their lunch break, we went in during their hour lunch break to set up all the equipment. And then once the company came back from lunch, we had 90 minutes to film and go. Essentially, we did like 3 takes of each number. And my goal was to get at least 2 videos out of that. Because when you're in a situation like that, you never know how things are going to go. You could run a number 3 times, and at the end of the day, the performer still isn't happy with the work that they presented. Or in the situation that we were in, we had a piano malfunction. And so all 3 takes of one number we weren't able to use. Luckily, we walked away with 2 video assets, one being that trailer that went viral.
We met through PACNYC through your reach out to influencers. How do you think influencers are playing a role in the theater performing arts marketing space?
Well, I will say in the early days of PACNYC, after I invited, it was just a few of you. It was probably a total of like 10 to 15 influencers, and we weren't done with construction yet, but you all were allowed to post like exterior photos and just like very small snippets of the space. Our following doubled in 24 hours. And this was in the very, very early days, so not a lot of numbers. But I think influencers also come up against the same challenges that regular marketers who work for the institution do. They want to be able to talk about the cool things or show the cool things, and that requires having access and time and all of these things. But I do think they are necessary. I do think that they have a level of trust with an audience that a new brand like us doesn't have just yet. I would say we're getting there. But I think especially in the beginning, I very much had influencers as a huge part of our building strategy, our growth strategy. And I'm intrigued to see how we can incorporate them into the creation of content going forward, because a lot of times they have incredible ideas and we can just help execute. Or it's the other way around. I think they're really important in the space. I think something that's actually monumental to theater going forward isn't just theater creators or performing arts creators, because obviously their niche is performing arts, theater, opera, etc. It's also the theater adjacent creators. I think of people like Eli Rallo, who is a TikTok content creator. She's an author, but she doesn't make her entire content about theater. She loves theater, which is great. Eli, please come see Cats, the Jellicle Ball at PACNYC. But she is somebody who, like, that's one of the things she makes videos about, but that's not her main thing. And I think what she has done, and so many other creators like her, have introduced just the idea of the arts to so many and have made it quote unquote cooler. Theater has this reputation of being stuffy and elitist and not affordable, which I don't necessarily think is untrue, but it can be the opposite of all of those things as well. And I think creators who make theater a part of the many pieces of content that they put out are really helpful in changing that narrative.
And I love what you're saying about accessibility, because I feel like PAC does a really good job at making tickets and things accessible.
We try.
What programs are there?
Very
I feel like
much
that's
so.
something really important for people listening to find out about.
Yes, we have a lot of different ticket accessibility programs. We have student tickets. So if you can present your student ID, you get 50% off of a ticket. We have 30 under 30. So if you are 30 and under, you qualify for $30 tickets to our productions. We have discounts for educators and first responders. And you can go on PACNYC.org and read all of the fine print with all of these. But we also have discounts for groups of 10 or more, groups of 20 or more. We know that theater needs to be financially accessible. And so in addition to offering free programming in our lobby stage, we have these ticket savings programs for our shows that require payment to see.
Yay. Yeah, and when I'm like, you have to see Cats. And I'm like, oh, I was like, there's 30 under 30 tickets. Like, you can do it. There's no reason not to.
Yes, 30 under 30 for any of our ticket savings programs. You cannot access them online just yet. Reminder, we are less than a year old. We're still building a lot of infrastructure, but physically go to the box office and purchase your ticket. You do have the option to call for these ticket savings programs, but our phone lines are extremely overwhelmed with enthusiastic people who want to take advantage of these programs. So your best bet, especially if you want to get day of tickets, is to go to the box office.
Yeah, I went to the box office, and it was cool because they're like, okay, where do you want to sit? And I was like, where do you think? I think that's always what's so fun about an in-person box office, that you have people who are so experienced with the space too.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, we ended up having the cabaret seating for Cats, which was game-changing. I loved. And then I have some just questions about you.
Yeah.
What's your New York story? How did you end up here and make this your life?
So I grew up loving theater. I grew up dancing, and my mom would take me to visit New York, and sometimes we'd see Broadway shows and things like that. But I knew I didn't want a career like dancing full-time or acting full-time or stage managing or anything like that because I am not a gig person. I am someone who, for my own mental health, needs full-time steady work. And so I never really saw myself moving to New York in my early college days. I thought it would just be a fun place to visit. But I was on a journalism track at the beginning of college, and I worked at or interned at a broadcast news station in Tampa. And one day I sat with a marketing producer who essentially was responsible for writing the commercials that would be like, coming up at 5, a cat is stuck in a tree. Hear how firefighters got the cat out. Things like that. And I realized that I really loved the marketing angle of the work there because it was getting into the why. Why is this story important? Why should you tune in? And I was like, well, I haven't really done much like dance or theater stuff since starting college, aside from taking like one dance class. I miss that. Is marketing for theater or dance something that I could do? And so I just started Googling, and I was like, okay, so next summer I'm going to apply for marketing internships at theaters or dance places and things like that. And so I did that, and I got a internship with Signature Theater Company, which is located on 42nd Street and 9th, 10th Avenue, and came to New York the summer between my second and third year of college and was here for a summer, stayed in intern housing, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I can like rush shows every weekend and I can like get a pretzel on the street and like do all these things. I loved it. I was like, okay, this is what I want. This is the job I want to do. This is where I want to live. Everything is all set. And so when I graduated college, I had secured another internship, this time with Roundabout Theater Company. And 10 days after graduation, I got on a plane and never looked back.
Love. So you kind of broke into the scene through doing internships.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have any recommendation or advice for other like young marketers who want to break into this kind of work?
100%. Cold emailing is your friend versus trying to network on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's very important, and it's something that I use to maintain my network. But if you're looking to make initial connections with people who work in the nonprofit arts space, especially in marketing, it's very possible that a way to reach them is listed on each nonprofit theater's website. So you can send them a cold email of like, hey, I am a student at Purchase College or wherever, and I'm interested in doing arts marketing. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Sometimes they'll say yes. I was really lucky in that people did say yes, and then that led to me getting internships. But I also did a lot of the hard work of applying. And once you sort of get into your first internship, ask, for a 30-minute meeting with as many different colleagues as you can, because you never know who they're going to know. The theater world especially is very, very, very small, and you never know how one day, 5 years from now, somebody that you sat next to at an internship is going to help you get your next job.
Yeah, that's so true. I did like the theater internship thing, and then I ended up doing the music internship thing, and I'm crossing paths with everyone all the time.
Absolutely.
Even like I have theater friends who like did an internship years ago, and we all still like hang out, and everyone's doing different things.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the people that I interned with at Roundabout was someone that now lived a block from me at my last apartment, and we still talk to each other all the time.
That's so cute. And then do you have any favorite shows you've seen lately that aren't at PAC?
I see so many shows. I say that because for me, when I go see another show, it's my chance to really enjoy theater and remember why I do it. I'm like, this is a show I don't have to market. Mm-hmm. I am just a patron, which can be really, really lovely. I think the first one that comes to mind is Here There Are Blueberries by Moises Kaufman and the Tectonic Theater Project that just closed at New York Theater Workshop. The Tectonic Theater Project, they did a play called The Laramie Project. Laramie Project. That was a show that I worked on in high school as a student directing project. And I just sort of fell in love with their style of theater. And Here There Are Blueberries is about a piece of World War II history. And World War II is a niche interest of mine when it comes to studying history. So I saw that play. It closed a little bit ago, but it was really, really wonderful.
What's been bringing you joy lately besides cats?
Well, I have a cat.
Okay.
I adopted a cat in December. Her name is Maisie, and she's relatively young. She's about a year and a half old, and she just is still in her, like, I'm not a kitten, but I'm not an adult cat yet era, where she still enjoys playing and is exploring her environment of getting used to my apartment. And so she just is a rather entertaining little friend that I have.
Love. So that's cats at work and cat at home.
Yes. Maisie does not come to work at Cat's the Jellicle Ball, though.
Have any cats come to work at Cats?
Not that I know of, but we have some very enthusiastic audience members who have gone full out and like dressed up in traditional Cats costumes with the makeup and the wigs. And I'm just like, wow, you all are amazing.
Incredible. So that's really all I have.
Yay.
Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about or bring up?
Jane, what's bringing you joy lately?
What's been bringing me joy lately? Oh, I've been like renovating my room, kind of. I painted half of my room. I have to paint the other half sometime this week, but I had like a whole week off from work, and I was like, okay, I like painted my kitchen cabinets. I'm like putting new light bulbs in my room, like things like that, kind of revamping my space.
I love that.
That's what's bringing me joy lately. I love my little projects. Yay, so thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Cats the Jellicle Ball is running at PACNYC through August 11th. And then when do we find out the new season? Is that
soon? Stay tuned.
And then there's going to be another season at PACNYC. So like, it's at PACNYC.
PAC_NYC or visit PACNYC, PACNYC.org.
And make sure you go follow them on Instagram, TikTok, all the spots.
Yeah.
This has been The Next Stop Is with Jane August. We now have a good collection of episodes, and you can listen to them all on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else I posted this to. The Next Stop Is recorded at Brick House in downtown Brooklyn. This episode was edited by Dean Emerson.